Our speaker today is a farmer, agricultural consultant, and a community leader. He has been pioneering sustainable farming solutions through his company, Booysen's Tunnel Farming. You are more than welcome to Google that. You can even search that on social media. That's extra information. Free marketing manier, with a passion for agriculture, sparked by his family's small-scale farming efforts. Byron combines his leadership skills with his love for farming to empower emerging farmers. He is a renowned expert in faith-driven farming and community development. That's another element I think I fell in love with because I am a practical theology community development student. And he has received notable awards for his contributions. Today, he will share insights on faith, farming, and food security, and the role of the church in sustainable agricultural transformation. And let's welcome Meneer Byron.
Good morning, everyone. It's very lovely to be here this morning back in Stellenbosch. It feels like a semi-small return, or what do you call it, a completion circle or cycle. I see a few of my old colleagues of university here as well in the audience, and Dr. Marnus Venga was one of them. And I see Dr. van der Riet now, Dr. van der Riet also in the sitting. For me, it's a big pleasure to be here because agriculture is obviously a big part of me, and it's who I am and it's who we all are. But for me, I was wondering a lot as I got the invitation to come and speak here today, do I wear a tie or don't I wear a tie? And then I thought, okay, let me wear a tie because the chances are good that my fellow audience members here will not wear a tie this morning, and I don't see one person wearing a tie. So in that way, I just wanted to compliment you, and also for always looking so neat in your organizations, because I think you all look lovely today as well, but on Sundays you look absolutely superb. So with all the compliments aside now, I would like to, obviously wondering as I came here, am I going to be factual about farming, or am I going to try and inspire? Or am I going to talk to the heart or and hopefully the spirit, and hopefully one day we will fill the spirits through the stomach as well. My main cause for being here is also to introduce what I do. I think as farmers, speaking in front of people is not always like the main agenda of the day. But for me, coming from Kraaifontein, when I started farming, I wondered, what am I going to do? Farming has been part of my family since I know them. It's never been commercial farming. It's always been a situation of being subsistent or being able to at least put food on the table. But as I grew up in Burgersdorp, as I rightly was said, I wasn't necessarily born there. I was born in Cape Town, traveled to Pretoria and Gauteng, and then I landed up being in Burgersdorp, where my parents are now. My father would have enjoyed the singing this morning because he was a member of the Saints Messengers back in the day in UWC, and I remember them singing in the house, and it always brought, if I haven't sang for a long time as beautifully as I heard this morning, then I knew that these are the voices I need to be with, because it brought almost tears to my eyes. So without further ado, I will continue my presentation and take you on my journey as a farmer and how that started, and why I'm here today talking to you about food security and why it's so important in our communities. So where are we now on this side? So as I said, I am a farmer, and I am experienced in it through hydroponics. How I came about it is understanding through my learnership and training from university days, being so passionate about community interaction and serving the community, that one thing was very apparent to me. People don't have access to food. There's people in our country that are going hungry every day. About 20 million of our compatriots in this country don't have access to food. And what does access to food mean? We'll get to that. But for me, the most important part is to understand that what is food security? Which side do I aim this thing? So food security in general is obviously, if you don't have access to food, it means that either your socio-economic access is limited, or the amount of food that is developed in your space is not available to you. We have myself doing farming in Kraaifontein that is trying to obviously create difference through either educating people through the programs that I develop, or it is like, for example, the following, where I've created opportunities at Atlantis SEZ and partnered with companies where I can teach them about farming as a whole. What do I want to obviously achieve in, excuse me guys. So the key objectives of today is the church calling in agriculture. The church is called to support sustainable practices and empower communities to grow their own food. Why do I say that? Faith is a catalyst and drives our communities to food justice and inspires innovative solutions to food security challenges. We need to look at empowering over charity. We cannot just understand that we want to be able to give handouts to community anymore. I have grown up in the VGK church, and as I go to school and I go, the schools that I've gone to, my compatriots went to the NG Kerk school. And why I'm saying this is just to understand the differences sometimes where I always thought the Verenigde Gereformeerde Kerk is something that everybody is going to become. As I grew up, I didn't understand obviously everything. And then there was always a difference between the infrastructure and the available resources to the churches. And for me, what's important to sort of educate in our communities, in all communities that hunger exists, is to give and empower tools that communities don't necessarily just have the handout capability, but actually to empower people to do it themselves. So many times churches have access to land, but don't know necessarily what to do with it. And I think it is extremely important to be aware that there are different tools available to us if it's in science, and science has been a forefront for me in terms of understanding agriculture. Food production, if you look at how, who of you have a garden at home, or maybe in your congregation have a program that does engages in food security programs? Does anybody here have that? Just a show of hands. There are a few, and I would like to maybe ask you about what type of programs it is or how you engage with the community. But I'll come back to you. But that show of hands, I hope the rest was just maybe a little bit shy. Either if you have your own garden or your own food security system at your church. Just to continue. So if we bring back, back to the biblical sense of things in terms of why it is our responsibility to also be part of agriculture, or at least a faith-based program in terms of food security. I would like to read this to you. The Bible doesn't shy away from food and farming. Psalm 24 reminds us, the earth is the Lord's and everything in it. Genesis 2 tells God placed humankind in the garden to work it and take care of it. And in the Gospels, we see Jesus feeding the hunger, not only miraculously, but responsibly. Our theology must include soil. Our faith must include stewardship. The Gospel must include the garden. obviously you are the specialist in these phrases and the Bible, but I like to live it practically, and I want to come to you today as a practical experiment, or as someone that is walking a road of a small farmer that is trying to also alleviate some need in my immediate community, but also trying to make a living. And I would like to just share this one video with you to also explain to you about the government implications about food security.
Pricing, of course, will be a problem. How do you suggest or you think food affordability can be monitored? What's the role of the various institutions, especially public ones, in dealing with this?
So very interestingly, government actually does have an obligation under international law, both under the International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights and under the African Charter of Human Rights, to monitor food prices. But I think that there is a reluctance to do that because doing that challenges corporate power. And is therefore a very difficult thing politically to do. But it is possible to monitor food prices, and we know, for example, from VAT exemption, that not all of that benefit is actually going back to the consumer, that some of that is being absorbed by retailers. So I think it is more about political will.
Yes. Now, Doc, if political will is lacking, Doc, your view, I mean, after years of research as a socio-economic rights institute, do you think we'll ever have a food secure population?
So I think that it's a very good question. I think that we are able to narrow the gap. I don't think we will be entirely able to bridge the food prices are moderated. There are other measures, for example, even if government and retailers could come together and just agree on a basket of nutritious food that could be subsidized, that could include some proteins, so not starchy food, or not just starchy food, but proteins, fruit and vegetables, to make the basket of food more affordable.
Thank you for that. How many times have you heard that perhaps if we come to a more political side of things in the churches or in our country per se, that we don't have a certain political will to do something or a real big call to action? And when I talk about call to action, it doesn't differ away from the fact that many times we do come together as a group and we do talk about it and we do pray about it, but we definitely do not necessarily have a real big plan of action in practical terms. If you have to look at your immediate areas, for example, I would, and this is where I want to perhaps bring in the individuals that have a garden or do have churches that are engaging in food security programs, just to mention something about how that came about. And I want to maybe ask the individuals that just lifted their hands now, who are you? Are you out there? If I make it more interactive. May I get a microphone to the audience, please?
Good morning.
Good morning.
So I'm not running a community garden or anything like that. But my name is Simon, so it really suggests that I need to at least engage the earth. I just have a love for gardening, planting, but I grew up in a space where also my people they were always planting, they were farmers. So for me it's really just natural to also be planting and to be able to eat from the garden. And what a joy it is to simply be able to take something to your neighbor and to share that. Because when you plant, you always have enough to share. So that's just what I do. Thank you.
No, thank you so much. The one thing that I experienced in my farming while doing hydroponics in tunnels is I necessarily jumped into the whole thing. I sort of overplayed my hand in terms of saying, yeah, I know where I'm gonna sell this product and so on. I literally wanted to produce a crop. I did not have a plan, but I had faith that I'm gonna sell my tomatoes. And when I started producing this crop, it was absolutely, I did it from, I listened to my mentors and I followed my program to the letter, and I crossed my T's and all those things. And while I was doing that, I had many hardships in terms of trying to get to that point of harvest. And that is what obviously farming comes about, where you have so much sacrifice in terms of what you put in, and at the end of the day, when you harvest, I had no issue selling that crop. Because normally what we do is we start with a problem. We say, okay, you want to farm, but where are you going to sell it? You don't even know if you can able to produce the crop, so you haven't even started. There are so many times in terms of a product that it doesn't mean you don't need to know and do your due diligence in terms of where you're going to sell it, but you at least must be able to say, let us start somewhere. Let us not stagnate with having this plan and wondering what is the outcome going to be, but let us actually attempt to start our process. So the definition of food security and food to see the difference between insecurity. Yes. Let's first listen to the other opinion.
Good morning. Sorry, I was just brought the mic, but I'm happy to share. My name is Edith Moses from the Methodist Church in our district. I'm just going to comment on one of the areas we have a food security garden in Ottery itself. We have this whole passion for food security. So we sent one of our evangelists to be trained in the idea of gardening, small farming garden idea. And simply at the church, we have a church and a school, primary school. And they just used a tract of land and planted basics, particularly spinach, which is easy to grow. Now I see it's chillies and those, whatever's in season. And the concept behind that, one was to supply the school with a feeding scheme, vegetables, on a daily basis. Sundays as well, what happens with the leftovers, being sold amongst members, both there and other societies. And that is planted back into the garden itself. We gave seed money of about 40,000, and within a year they recovered it and we've been able to plant new crops. The idea is now that this particular person now teaches others, but using church gardens, because I think as churches we have many properties, and instead of just beautifying it, then we need to place a space to be able to.
That is absolutely wonderful, and I'm also further inspired to get involved with that. And congratulations with that type of success. And I think that type of stories is what should reach other churches to be able to understand that we have access to land. And sometimes, yes, the question is, what are we going to do? Sometimes the people in the room that have the authority to perhaps give access to the land or give short-term leases or have the more practical solutions in play, always wonder who is going to take responsibility for it and who is going to be the stalwart for it, because we now have to compete with other things in church, like who's going to make money out of this? Where's the money going? And then that's the other ethical questions you ask for yourself. Is the real purpose to really empower the hunger by able to say, okay, we have access to so much food. Look, a person can only eat so much lettuce. You can't just produce lettuce. So now we wonder, how are we going to fill the bread basket at the end of the day? But the concept is not necessarily that you just have of one component. It means that our community actually needs to expand, because how are we going to integrate with the tomato farmers or the potatoes? Because I actually enjoy potatoes, but now I'm only growing lettuce. So now how do I get that? So we need to be able to see how we can integrate our not necessarily policies, but to see how we can share with our resources. But the only way to do that, if we have awareness of each other's movements and to understand, okay, in my community, here's a big sign, I am doing this. And these components, for example, bigger businesses can also support us And I'm a big believer of that. My biggest marketing thing for what I say to my fellow small farmers is, don't necessarily go into farming wanting to just sell to a Pick and Pay or a Checkers or a Spar or any of the bigger retail companies. There's people now have access to government grants, which is your SASSA money, for example. And that is sort of to help with, to alleviate food insecurity in our communities. If the policy is implemented correctly, or if you differ with it, at the end of the day, someone that needs it today will have that money in their pocket. So they will be able to alleviate that immediate hunger. Sometimes in our churches, we do have the same principles. I know of a few communities that have voucher systems, etc. But then again, it encourages the charity mentality. So we want to get out of that. So having access to land, I must tell you that you have access to a lot of tools and infrastructure and technology, and people with much smarter than myself here today to be able to tell you that there is a tool that I use to produce food. And I would like vegetables to be my high priority in your community. And if your community have access to farmers that produce other crop that is much necessary, not just crop farming, but if you look at the meat industry, for example, chickens, or if you are total vegans, to go into that route. And that's the other thing also that comes into play. What do I like? I like organic farming. I don't like organic farming. So in your council of where you make this decision of who will have access to land, you can build those type of parameters into your structure, but at least give access to people to be able to engage you. If they come with a plan to and I'm talking about they is your congregation. The congregation is people or individuals with either high level of revenue in terms of their net worth, or people that come into, we don't differ with people that come just into is your congregation. But people are willing to help if the right, people are willing to give more if they are right ways to help properly. And then I just want to clarify what, food security, in the pillars of food security that exist in our communities. So availability, if food is not enough, then there must be more produced. In South Africa, we technically don't have that issue in terms of the production of how much food is available. We have a lot of food available. We have a lot of waste happening as well. We don't have the systems to be able to correctly get the food to the right people. That's our issue. With 20 million people in our country is hungry. In up to 800 people, according to the UN stats, I mean, it's between 720 and 800 million, but at some point people don't start counting, because that's a lot of people being hungry, going to bed each day. How can we change that? We need to be able to improve our systems. I think if government has always been pointed the finger at, then we also need to be able to say, in our congregation at least, we are able to alleviate, like the story we just heard now, similar stories that can bring big success. And sometimes you can think, okay, but where are you going to put this greenhouse or grow your crop? Because I literally don't have fertile land, etc. like that. Today, in 2025, fertile land is not the limit. The only thing you need is water to be able to grow anything. Then the other pillar is the utilization of proper use of food-based or nutrition and food safety. So food must be used properly. There must be nutritious food. People can't just have access to the minimum. So nutritious food is extremely important. The stability of it as well. South Africa, we don't have instability of food production. We have a lot of food, as I just said. We need to be able to give people access to it by either means of through our doors in our churches, in our infrastructure, or by means of conversation through policy changes and your leadership that you are. So yeah, just to a global stats, over 735 million is actually faced with hunger globally, and in sub-Saharan Africa, where we are, has the highest prevalence of that. And that's also equal to, for example, if we come into Stellenbosch, we see the vast difference between, and the Gini coefficient is totally apparent, where we see the vast difference between people's life standards access to things that they have between rich and poor. The only other solution is to be able to give people access to food, is give them job creation and opportunity like that. So we need to be able to, if we understand our role as wanting to fill our stomachs with food, we need to be able to say, okay, how can we also drive policy for job creation, for example, and where you are actively busy in your communities to talk about those things. Excuse me, I just want to get the right slide. So we talked about socio-economic differences that exist in South Africa and also the challenges that we have. It can be not to be able to afford airtime, it can be not to be able to afford a farm, it could be any of those challenges to be able to reach your goal that you want. So we have a lot of economical challenges that we need to bridge to be able to really refine what we want to achieve in terms of our communities with food security. And then we also are, which you will also hear about in this talks tomorrow about climate change and the impact that has on food insecurity in our countries. Now, as we sit here today, it's cold, but as I just watched the news this morning in Kokstad, in Bethlehem, it is absolutely, it is as white as you can get in terms of snows. So there's so much water there. But as that is happening, it's also a blessing again for the land. I mean, it's an environmental thing that it gives back, so there's water available again. But people and that's also, must say, in terms of South Africa, we all have those challenges that bring us together under the same blanket of problems. We have food insecurity, which is all of our problem. We have the weather problem, which is everybody's cold now. So we all are united to this morning because we are all wearing jerseys. We're all wearing, something that keeps you warm. But not everybody always have access to that. We all enjoy South Africans' best beef, beautiful crop, all the beautiful foods. But not everybody has access to that. So we need to be able to say, how can we give each person a blanket? How can we give each person something to eat? And I think there's many, many beautiful programs in our country that we have that speaks loudly to this. But we need to address the gap. And the gap we can identify in our own communities, in our own churches. And I've also, a lot of the times you go to church on a Sunday, you don't know who is hungry in the church next to you. And we need to figure out, not by means of hands or that, by means of action, where people are involved to change those things. And I think we can reach that through a lot of social barriers that we do have and try to break them down. So yeah, food creates dignity. This is a photo in one of my greenhouses that we had an excursion with about 34 individuals that were also going to take what I have there. So basically what I'm saying to people, I'm an open book, I'm transparent, come and see what I learn. There's no trade secrets here. Go out and try to implement it, because that's also the other thing that we try to sometimes do, being so competitive that we don't want to share information. We don't want to say where you bought the seeds, the seedlings, or where you are selling the crop, because you're so worried that someone else is going to take your space. And I think I must say there is enough space to be able to do that. Also, what I also told them, I had the opportunity through the Western Cape Department of Agriculture to be able to, as a naive student, I ran out of university and not looking for a job. But I sent my CV to one place, I got an interview, I didn't get it, and I said, I'm going to try something else. That's not for me. Not that I am above it. I do want to work for someone now, though. But as a farmer, I decided I didn't become a farmer overnight. I went through the process, I had a need, and then I got help from the Department of Agriculture, and I put up my infrastructure. Not everybody can just do that overnight. So why not give everybody the information and the chance as well? And just to continue.
Booysen's tunnel farming at our risk. With a local farmer, a youth farmer, we've invested in him together with our agricultural advisory services from the Western Cape Department of Agriculture. We want to say to you, thank you for your massive investment in turning this great tomato tunnel farming in a very productive business. And we want to thank our advisory services for supporting the youth. Here in the Western Cape, we will continue making an investment in the youth, because an investment in the youth is an investment in agriculture for food security right here in the Western Cape. And on behalf of the Western Cape government, the Department of Agriculture, we say a big thanks and appreciation for his effort to showcase that there are youth that have talent and have an interest in agriculture. Signing off for the love of agriculture.
Thank you for taking the time and showing that the government does invest in youth and that all our dreams can be possible. We know that it is epicenter of hope and it is agriculture. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the applause. I am now 36 on Friday, so I'm leaving the youth chamber apparently. That's in regards to applications to the government. But, you know, at the moment, in all honesty, I have had a lot of challenges in terms of the small farming enterprises, but I've also had a lot of successes and highs. I've always, for some reason, gotten the privilege to be able to tell my story, even if it comes out in drips and drabs and sometimes very elegantly. But one thing is for sure, that it is possible for small farmers and also for communities to have very successful food security programs. People that you trust or invite to be able to talk to. Yes, sometimes it's all about how people get money out of something, but money, we must say, it is a tool that we use to either improve our churches, our environment, and we need to make sure that we can do so, ethically, responsibly, but also very much sustainably. We cannot change our environments without that talk, and we need to be able to either have a great cause together as a movement, and I think as a movement with the religious movement needs to speak up, I believe, in our communities, that hunger, yes, the only entity that can help with hunger at the end of the day is God, and we must make sure that we really fill the spirits of our people to understand that, and we have actionable outcomes. For me, in my journey, I have 7 tunnels, or had 7 tunnels. I said I had because I had to sell my tunnels. Access to land has ended after 10, 11 years. I've been farming for 11 years. And now I'm going into the consultancy area while still looking for bigger land to be able to farm. And my theme has always been, from the moment that I've been involved in agriculture, is to help other farmers, and also to make sure that what I have learned, I can transfer the skills to either communities or other corporations that might need help. My talent now at the moment is hydroponic systems. I build tunnels. I've partnered with strategic partners that make sure that I know that if many people are sold ideas, you give them the money that you ethically and wholesomely gathered, and the partner walks away and gives you a product that you actually did not need. So we need to also know, as a community, what do you need? And those are the questions sometimes not answered. So I've also had a lot of involvement in community projects, which I believe will have a continued ripple effect in the community to engage more people with this topic. And there's been a lot of, a movement in that regard. And I can go to the next slide. Just two previous ones, please. These are just a few illustrations of what I've done there. They were actually moving pictures. But the one to the left is just to illustrate how things were, that was still the development stage where there was nothing, and how from nothing you can actually get to something. This is what I was trying to illustrate with a few pictures. and using micro drips. You can see I'm not using soil with the spinach. Everybody knows where the spinach is. The second one from the left. So the Swiss chard there has no need for soil. For those that have not been exposed to it, hydroponics is a very interesting topic because you literally are creating the best environment for the plant without soil. And yes, we want crops to have soil, but it's actually amazing to be able to do that. And if you don't have a lot of access to soil, I can turn this hall into a very productive area which will be able to feed a congregation. So then we come to land again. Utilization of land. Do you have access to land? Who has access to land in your congregation? Don't be shy. We won't come to your area yet. But normally, so we're very protective of our resource, right? And for many years, we don't do anything with our resources. If it's our buildings, because let's face it, real estate is part of the game. And access to land is also giving you purpose in your community. Somehow there needs to be more, and this is my inspiration part, it's maybe not fact, but there needs to be a little bit more conversation, critical conversations about what is on the table in terms of all the congregations to be able to understand who is utilizing it properly. And it's not a challenge to be able to outwit. And it's not a land argument where we also go into South African terms. Not at all. In my experience, all of the people and my main mentors have been white farmers, very good white farmers wanting to help me to achieve my successes. And because they also understand the need for that. But then you also get, areas where people are just, they shut or they close their eyes or or just focus on themselves and not giving access to assistance. We need to ask those critical questions in our communities, because answering them will a lot of times answer a lot of the problems that we all are faced with. We all are faced with the fact that people are going to bed hungry, and we need those systems to improve. If we go to the next one, please. We all know about the impact of climate change. We've now seen situations where animals are dying because of the cold. You get, there was a big broiler operation. I'm not sure which province now, but the broiler, a lot of the chickens has passed away because of dire cold. Things like that can easily happen. We also need insurance policies in place, and our insurance policies means that you either plan very well, especially if big crises happen, what are you going to do? And also have the right information, like for example, I plant certain cultivars, and that's also an argument that churches must have, that we talked about earlier, just a little bit. If you go organic or non-organic, and if you go with GMO, which is genetically modified seeds, or you go with organic seeds, what is the argument of the church? Has the church answered those questions for itself too? Because this afternoon we're going to go for lunch. Last night you had steak. I don't know if you had steak, but spitbraai. Did any one of you ask the questions, for example? Where did the food come from? Or did it bother you then? Or will it bother you when you sit around the council room and wanting to make a decision, are we going to farm or not? Because many times you are struggling with that moral argument, which is important arguments to have, but it's sometimes not very practical, because you have those conversations. It's very clever, very smart, but then we don't get just a standard plan to be able to implement something, because at the end of the day, people are hungry today. So we can answer those questions tomorrow, but then again, is it an ethical dilemma to say that we are fine with the beef yesterday, but tomorrow we are not so fine with it? Lamb. So having sustainable practices is extremely important in any industry that you're doing in terms of farming. Those that have maybe grown up on a farm, the beauty and the eloquence and the balance between having your green area where your lamb, if you drive through to Caledon, for example, there's always the most beautiful scenery because it's almost like you are teleporting to a different country. You are in Ireland or wherever. I haven't been there personally, but those are the pictures that you see. But we have so many seasons in South Africa, it almost equates to all the seasons that happens in the whole of the world. So we are very diverse, and there's no limit to those things. So we just talked about how the church can perhaps be a little bit more engaged in the advocacy of changing policy. I am not aware of the policies that you have in church that talk to food security, and if it does exist, like for example, the government talks to, there should be no hunger in schools, for example. A kid should not go hungry to school. Yes, we don't have maybe a 99.9% accurate food school program, but at least there is talking about it. What is the stance of the church in terms of those things? And I think it's important, like in the 1980s, where things got so riled up in our country in terms of the activism of apartheid, fighters. We need that type of spirit in terms of the hunger that we have in our country at the moment. We need that unity, at least for the like-mindedness. I think there's no one in this room that believes someone else must be hungry. So it must be some sort of inspirational thing where we talk to those aspects. There's a lot of NGOs and farmers that are willing to assist, and I think if you are able to know your needs of your community, you'll be able to also talk to those things in the community. Cultivating hope through action is why we are here. It's why I do what I do, and why I have starting to also engage with small farmers. Just yesterday I talked to 2 farmers that are wanting to start a seedling project in the Saldanha area. I said to them, that is an absolutely amazing idea. Besides the fact that I'm a consultant to assist them with how to get to that point, is that the lingering thing is always the lack of capital to start anything. But I told them, start small. You can't go and sell your Kentucky chicken if you don't have chickens already. So start with a few chickens, start with a few eggs, and just engage with that element. If you are not a person that really wants to get your hands dirty, I promise you there are people that just need access to land, access to the conversation, and they will run the story. There are so many wanting people. And then we talked about important gatekeepers that exist in this world as well. And we also need to make sure that gatekeepers keep all of the important needs of the community and the congregation in mind. So let's grow together, and I will simplify the whole process. It's much more complicated, but let's engage with our community for agricultural solutions. Let's ask, let's inquire, implement sustainable farming techniques and practices together, figure out what best fit that would be for you. For example, if you have 900 hectares of land, you don't necessarily need greenhouses, necessarily, depending on the climate. But you'll be able to then, if you have access to water, you must be able to generate enough food for your community. If you only have access to 1 hectare or even less, even as big as this room, you are also able to produce something in your community. And I would want to encourage you. Step 3, provide training and resources for ongoing support. I think there's individuals like myself, individuals that you feel in your community as walk the walk, engage with them to be able to inspire further involvement in food security. And food is not necessarily the love of tomatoes. People saved my number as Byron Tomato, or Byron Broccoli, or Byron Pumpkin. But that is not who I am, and I'm not necessarily to find myself with the fruit. But what that does, that tomato is the best in a lasagna dish. What that does, it's amazing on a sandwich. It's super delicious. But then they don't call me Byron Delicious. It's just Byron Tomato. So, and then Step 4, I just wanted to go back to the previous one, excuse me. Step 4, encourage collaboration for long-term food security and justice. I believe that there is unity in that thinking. I think a conversation can happen and it can engage further. There can be a symposium about just this one thing with few people. There's so many other attributes to it, and it links a lot of industry leaders and actually gives industry leaders an opportunity. We must also give people with the money the opportunity to give. We just need to create the right framework for that. And sometimes frameworks don't exist, and money disappears to different avenues that we don't necessarily want it to go. Thank you. And the next. So, yeah, I just have an image that I generated with AI. And I'm saying it like nobody else uses it. But, you know, this is a very nice and humbling image. But if I just read Isaiah 61, verse 4, they will rebuild the ancient ruins and restore the places long devastated. They will renew the renewed cities that have been devastated for generations. And for me, it just sums up in the bottom. Let our churches become gardens. Let our faith become seed. Let our food systems reflect the kingdom of God. And I want to then also say thank you for this opportunity again. And I do believe that it is possible, and I walk the walk every day. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. Thank you.